What's up, everybody? Welcome to Among the Fence. My name is Aaron, and today we're going to be going over my top 10 favorite albums of 2024. And just like my top 5 least favorite albums of 2024, this is all based off of my opinion, so hopefully I don't offend anybody. And if I do, just remember that. If you feel like an album deserves to be on here more than other albums or whatever, go ahead and leave a comment below. There's a good chance that I probably didn't even get a chance to review the album or listen to it, so that could also be why. And also, some of these scores that I gave these albums, which I'm also going to tell you at the end of each one of the rankings, some of them might be higher, like number 2 might be lower than number 5 or vice versa, whatever. It doesn't necessarily mean I enjoyed a certain album more based off of the score. This is going to be based purely off of enjoyment, not what I give the highest score to, even though the score does have a factor in this as well. So yeah, let's jump into it. Coming in at number 10, we have Bring Me the Horizons Post-Human Next Gen, which is part 2 of their post-human kind of series thing that they were doing. I give this one an 8.9 out of 10, and I never thought I would put a Bring Me the Horizon album on my top 10 album of the year list, but I thoroughly enjoy this album so much. My favorite songs were Utopia and also Limousine due to its Deftones-esque kind of quality. I also really enjoyed NA, and I liked this whole album quite a bit more than I liked their part 1 of this, which was an EP. It's got some solid pop punk thrown in there, and the overall flow of the record is absolutely perfect. The production to me hurts this more than anything else, but it's not nearly as bad as it's been in the past. I do feel a little silly throwing this album on this list, even at number 10. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this one, but if you can get past the bitterness that this band is kind of a mediocre metalcore band and they're not doing deathcore anymore and they changed their sound and all that, if you can get past that and look at this as just a really good pop punk kind of experimental album, it's so freaking solid. They do such a good job. All these vocals sound fantastic, and yeah, I can't get enough of it. At number 9, we have The Story So Far with I Want to Disappear. I give this one an 8.8 out of 10. I just love the vulnerability of this record. The theme of a relationship growing apart despite the desire to stay together works really well with Parker finally being real about his feelings. The modern pop punk meets traditional melodies is what kept me coming back to this album for more, honestly. Outside of that, I felt like we didn't really have too many good pop punk records throughout this year. So this album was kind of an easy place for, especially at number 9. The musical progression of this album leads you through Parker's life after writing his last album, Proper Dose, and it does a fantastic job. My favorite songs off of this album are Letterman, which is one of the best singles released throughout the year, and also White Shoes. Coming in at number 8, we have Like Moths to Flames, The Cycles of Trying to Cope. I also gave this one an 8.8 out of 10. And finally, we have some metal on this list. The songs that stand out to me the most on this record were Over the Garden Wall and also Gone Without a Trace. The riffs on this record are super solid. I wouldn't say that they're the best riffs that this band has ever written, but as a whole, this album just stood out to me so much. It does have some kind of radio-friendly, modern-sounding metalcore moments and qualities here and there, but I feel like they pull it off pretty well. The storytelling, as far as lyrics go, are just so good. They drew me in immediately, and the more you start to figure out what's really going on throughout this album, the more invested in it you get, and the more everything just starts to sound so freaking good. And this is one of my favorite metalcore bands around. This isn't my favorite release that they've done. I still like Pure Like Porcelain. I believe that's the EP they released a little bit ago. That album, that EP is still just top tier, but this is a solid follow-up to it. I feel like this is like part 2 to that, and it works out so well. Number 7, we have Ghost Atlas, Dust of the Human Shape. I gave this one an 8.7, but this to me is one of the best sounding records I've heard in a very long time. Jesse Cash from Era poured all of his heart into this album, and you can definitely feel it. It's got a little bit more of a melancholic kind of atmosphere compared to his last album, All Is Sync, and There's Nothing Left to Sing About. The more musical sections throughout this album do have a little bit more of a vibrancy to them, but it doesn't really stray too far away from this record's extremely chill demeanor. I feel like you could put this record on during a rainy day and it would just fit the mood so perfectly. And Jesse said he's so proud of this album, probably more than he is out of anything else he's done. and you could hear why. Like I said, he put everything into it. It's kind of weird having this on the list, at least before anything that's Era, because Era is my favorite band, and they did release Cure this year, but I could not put this on. I listened to this record so freaking much. Almost every time I got into my car for the first month that this album came out, I would listen to at least one of the songs. At number 6, we have Fit for Autopsy, The Nothing That Is. I gave this one 8.6 out of 10, and it hurts me so much to put my favorite deathcore band so low, but I guess it just goes to show how steep the competition was this year, I guess. You definitely get the sense that they did whatever they wanted to on this album. The more I listened to this record, the better it got, though. I wasn't that into it, honestly, the first time I gave it a spin. And I feel like there isn't too many standout moments on this album as there was the last one, Oh What the Future Holds, which is honestly near perfect as far as deathcore is concerned. I did find myself going back, though, and listening to the whole album all the way through multiple times. Every time I would just start to get like this hankering for some deathcore and Fit for Autopsy, and this whole album would play all the way through. No problem, no skips. It flows beautifully, and I feel like this album needs to be looked at as a whole. But even with that said, my favorite songs are Hostages, Lurch, and also Lust for the Severed Head, which is just super, it makes you make a very stinky face. And this is it. This is where I get beat up. This is where you're going to want to drag me out by my collar in the middle of the street and kick my teeth in. At number 5, we have Knocked Loose. You won't go before you're supposed to. I know it is a crime having this not at the top of the list, but I don't know. As someone who struggles with the vocals, which to me, I've always called them shrieks. They sound good. They've grown on me over the years that I've been trying to listen to this band. I still love this album so freaking much. The music is top freaking tier. It's a super short record, so it doesn't overstay its welcome. Again, for someone who doesn't really care that much for the vocals, it's an easy spin. It's an easy listen. You can go through it multiple times and enjoy it. I still listen to a lot of the songs off of this album quite a bit. My personal favorites off of this album are Suffocate, Blinding Faith, Sit and Mourn. But honestly, every song on this thing is perfect. Again, this is coming from someone who has issues with the vocals. That's my main problem with this album, which I know a lot of people understand. A lot of people will agree with me. A lot of people will disagree, which is totally fine. All opinions here are welcome. But yeah, it was really hard for me not to put this higher. But like I said, it's based purely off of my enjoyment. And there are 4 albums that I enjoyed a little bit more than this one. So after you dragged me out in the street and kicked me in the mouth, and you've heard my explanation on why I put Knocked Loose so low, you're going to pick me up and apologize, and we're going to hug and continue to be friends. But then you're going to hear my number 4 pick, and you're going to get really angry again and push me back onto the ground and kick me in the mouth again and say, what the hell's wrong with you? Coming in at number 4, we have Real Friends with Blue Hour. I gave this album a 9 out of 10. It's kind of a curveball, admittedly, but this is as good as pop punk as you could possibly get. It's a tough listen due to just how deep it gets, and it just sticks a dagger in your heart, as I would assume most of us can relate to a lot of these songs in one way or another, yet it's so personal and so vulnerable. It deals with betrayals in a relationship and loneliness and the loss of a father, while also churning up super bouncy rhythms and hooks that get stuck in your head for days. Not to mention having Cody as the new vocalist with this band and on this album is just an absolute match made in heaven. I gave this album, like I said, a 9 out of 10. Every song is terrific. I feel like the songs that stuck with me the most, though, are Never Has Become Always, and also When You Were Here, which I relate to so much. And yeah, I know it's kind of weird. If you haven't listened to this album, definitely go and give it a listen. It's so freaking good. Now we're getting to some of the heavy hitters. We got number 3, Job for a Cowboy with Moon Healer. I give this one a 9.1. I have never been so excited for a band to make a comeback than this. And they did not disappoint, like a lot of other bands have done, since almost everybody and their mom has come back after COVID. Moon Healer has some of their best work. The production on it is so freaking perfect, and they they played like they never took a 10-year break. Like for the past 10 years on their hiatus, they were just sitting in their mom's garage just rocking out still, and they still have all this good chemistry together, and they're just still so good. The music is fantastic, the songwriting is perfect, the storyline picks up where they left off, and I feel like this has a lot of modern kind of metal stuff thrown in there along with traditional death metal moments. They basically showed that they're still top of the death metal genre. There's a lot of bands that have popped up in death metal here and there since this band has been on hiatus and never knowing when they're going to come back. And a lot of people are clawing for the top. And Job for a Cowboy announces that they're going to come back. And it's like, oh, who cares? And they show up and just kick everybody in the nuts. My favorite song on this is Grinding Wheels of a Phantom. That's pretty much it right there. Just go listen to that song. And by the time the first kind of riffy breakdown around like a minute 20 hits, you will probably have tears in your eyes because it is just perfection. It's so good. And this is where things got a little tough. Picking my number 2 was actually harder than picking my number 1. And I'll explain why in a little bit. But for number 2, we have Enterprise Earth with Death and Anthology. I also gave this one a 9.1 out of 10. First off, I gotta say that Travis solidified himself as a phenomenal vocalist. I know a lot of people were kind of on the fence and they don't really see it or agree with him. Some people love him, but I feel like he's here to stay. He did such a good job. The experimentation on this album, I feel like really set itself apart as far as other deathcore albums came out around this time. There's a lot of creative freedom that went into this thing, and you just get the feeling that this band has so much fun making this album. When you listen to it, they're just so in it. Even though, I mean, obviously it's recorded, it's not like a live listening, but it's just so freaking good. And the themes surrounding death and fear, it just all ties in perfectly. There's a lot of influences thrown around this album as well, such as Avenged Sevenfold and Casket of Rust, and also there's Korn and I Divine. I absolutely love the song Blood and Teeth and Kings of Ruination, I believe that's what it is, which has Ben Dur, who is, again, the best vocalist in the world as far as I'm concerned, and it's just so good. It was very hard to pick this album, and I will go over what other album I feel like competed really strongly against it in the honorable mentions. First up for honorable mentions, which was also up for number 2, which it's still tough to even. I still don't know. I gotta say, Awake and Providence with I Write to You, My Darling Decay. I listened to this album so much. It is so heavy. It is so brutal. It is just so in your face, and it mixes symphonic death metal with opera beautifully. On my notes right here, I wrote it mixes symphonic death metal with opera. But yeah, it mixes it with opera. Mixing it with opera would be pretty interesting as well. But they do such a creative job at doing it, and it isn't like overdone. When you hear it, you're just not like rolling your eyes, and it's not like a gimmick they're falling back on. It works very well with the storytelling, which is just so freaking good. I don't know. This is easily a number 2 as well. I should have put both of these as like slash, but I feel like that would have been cheating. But yeah, Wake and Providence, top tier. This is a very overlooked band, I would say. If you haven't listened to this band, I mean, Will Ramos came from these guys, and I feel like they're still top tier even without him. I feel like his work in this band isn't quite as good as where it's at now, for sure. Also, in honorable mentions, we have Night Rage, Remains of the Dead World. I didn't think that this would have ever made it on here either. This is easily their best record they've ever released. The riffs are great. The vocals are pure bliss. We also have Throne, Excessive Guilt. I know a lot of people didn't care for this all that much because it's kind of the same thing, admittedly, but to me this is like one of the best debut albums you could ever have, especially from a hardcore band. It deals with mental health issues in a very vulnerable way, which I feel like people overlook a lot. And like I said, even though it's a little repetitive, as a debut album, it's fantastic. Coming in at number 1, some of you guys might be surprised, some of you might not. We have Boundaries. Death is Little More. I give this one a 9.3 out of 10, and I absolutely adore this album. The drum work is flawless. The guitar riffs are heavy. They will make you want to headbang all the way through. The lyrics wear their emotions on their sleeve, and you can just hear it in the vocals. The lyrics are so good, but the vocals, you can hear the emotions and the pain that he's gone through. And it's just one of the best metalcore albums of, I gotta say, like the 2020s, the past 5 years at least. It has everything. It has traditional metalcore riffs. It's super dynamic. The melodies are fantastic. Great songwriting. Even like the clean vocals throughout the different passages here and there are used so well. It's not overdone. It just, everything about this album lives rent-free in my head. My favorite songs on this are Darkness Shared, Easily Erased, which is, it's just so freaking good, Face the Blade, and Blame's Burden. But again, almost every song on this thing is so good. Some of you guys might be disappointed that I didn't pick a more kind of well-known album for my number one, but like I said, it's all based off of what I enjoyed. And this came out towards the beginning of the year, and there was so many opportunities for other bands to really shine through. But this one, it just takes it. Everything about it. I know a lot of people, they don't care for much of the metalcore style, but I feel like these guys do it perfectly. And that is it for my top 10 albums of the year. Like I said before, it's just my opinion. If you don't like it, that's totally fine. But at the same time, share your top 10 albums with me down below in the comments. We could talk it out. I'll probably agree with a lot of the stuff you say, because I'm sure that a lot of the stuff you point out is fantastic as well. Just a good chance I probably didn't listen to it or review it throughout the year because I was so busy in general doing all the other reviews I was doing. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like. If you want to help support me and my channel, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell icon. And I just want to thank you guys so much for a fantastic year. Next year, I plan on doing a lot more videos, a lot more shorts on song reviews, a lot more reviews, even just some more miscellaneous stuff. I'm going to have more free time on my hands, so definitely look forward to that. And I hope you guys had a good year, a good Christmas, good Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for constantly coming by and supporting me, for those of you who have been around for a long time. And if you're new here, then welcome. And I hope you enjoyed this video enough to want to come back for more. And yeah, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day or night, whenever you happen to be watching this. And I will talk to you guys next year.